What a week. I need to put some music on. Let's see, what am I in the mood for? I need something that sets a mood. How about this? No, too weird. Like, way too weird. Now I need to get that out of my head. I mean, where did I even get that? I need something that has energy, some attitude. Something with a little fire. Whoa, way too angry and totally wrong show. How about something like nice, like some type of traveling music, something where I can close my eyes and just kick back and relax and enjoy it. Well, that's it, but that's not what I want either. What I need is something that'll get things going, something that fits in with this week's topic. Welcome to the BigBandology podcast. I'm Eric Drakney, and this is part 3 of Building the Big Band. The drummer is the navigator and conductor of a band, especially if no one is directing. Just like with lead trumpet and bass, you need someone who studies the styles needed to musically guide a big band and make sure that everyone knows where and when to play. Darren Allen, drummer for the SAO and Bay High School band director, joined me this week to add his thoughts on what makes a successful big band drummer. Coming up. Music is a powerful form of communication. It has been called, unfortunately to the point of cliché, a universal language. In 1947, trumpeter Dizzy Gillespie wanted to add a percussionist for a performance his big band was going to do at Carnegie Hall. He talked to bandleader Mario Bauza and asked if he could recommend someone to play some of those drums for him. The man that Mario sent him was Havana, Cuba-born Chano Pozo. Dizzy liked what Chano added so much that he asked him to stay on with the band after that performance. The problem was, Chano didn't speak English, and nobody in the band, including Dizzy, spoke Spanish. Even so, they communicated through music. Dizzy explained that Chano came up to him with an idea for a new tune. He sang each part in order, how it should go. Each one would layer on top of each other until it sounded like this. As Dizzy let us know during that opening, that was one of the most well-known Latin jazz tunes ever created, Manteca. There are really good examples of how important the three foundational parts of the big band work together in Manteca. The music starts with the bass line that sets up the groove. Next comes in the percussion to help strengthen the feel. The saxes, bones, and trumpets have these repeated patterns that layer and build on top of each other. Then Dizzy sails over top of the band playing an improvised solo. It's really hard to listen to it all and follow each thing. You start to wonder how they're all going to get out of it cleanly. Then the drum set player comes in and plays that 4-beat triplet pattern with the horns. The chaos stops and goes back into the groove so the melody can start. I highly recommend checking out the whole tune if you've not heard it. It's a great example of something from the end of the big band era that is very different from what was being played. In a big band, the drummer is a multitasker. First, they're required to make sure they have the knowledge of the style of the music the band is about to play. Next, they work with the bass player to create the musical feel or pocket for the tune. They're required to read music, and not just music, drum charts. This could be really difficult based on the notation styles of some composers and arrangers. Ask a drummer, and they'll tell you can get lost in a shorthand that's used. There may be lines of slashes with very little guidance as to what is happening in the music. There also may be something that looks like they should be resting, but then there's a little message that says, play time for 16 bars. Yes, the job of a drummer is playing, but even more than that, the job of a drummer is listening. A lot. Not only do they have one of the loudest instruments in the band, it has also been used as a communication tool for years. There are so many things that can happen in a piece of music, and the drummer is relied on to communicate what is either currently happening, or even more important, what is coming up. The other trick is to not overplay or play too much in the wrong places. This makes the music sound bombastic, like heavy artillery being shot off. What the drummer needs to do is play time, and play in time with the bass player. They need to know when something needs to be emphasized or if they just need to keep things moving along. During solos, they can interact with the soloist, like being in a small group setting. However, if there are background figures, they need to know when they happen and what to play with the horns. Finally, they need to let everyone know where to play during shout sections and big ensemble sections so it all lines up and sounds clean and tight. Besides that, there's not much else to do. Every drummer has their own way they do things. Their style, much like the lead trumpet, helped form the sound and style of the band that they played with. When I started booking the Skatch Anderssen Orchestra years ago, I would talk to the drummers about what I was looking for. Usually my comment would be something like, I don't ask for much. I just need you to go from playing like Buddy Rich on one tune to playing like Mel Lewis on the next. Oh yeah, I'll probably need a little Sonny Payne on the one after that too. No problem, right? Just to give you an idea of how unfair that is to ask someone to do, here are some examples of how different drummers approach the music. First, Mel Lewis, playing the out chorus on Thad Jones' arrangement of All of Me. Next is Buddy Rich off the Roar of 74 album on a tune written by Ernie Wilkins called Senator Sam. This is the background figures during the tenor solo. One of my all-time favorite tunes, Corner Pocket, done by the Count Basie Band. Here's Sonny Payne playing the shout chorus. And finally, here's the shout section from Thad Jones' Mean What You Say, performed by the Skatch Anderssen Orchestra. As a horn player, I'm incredibly thankful when I am on a bandstand and have a really good drummer to work with. To me, playing with a great drummer means I don't have to think or worry because I know they're right there. I could just play and be part of the moment. In late 2015, I had the distinct pleasure of having drummer Darren Allen join the Skatch Anderssen Orchestra. He is also a graduate of Youngstown State University and my guest this week. So my first question to him was, when did you start at YSU?
98 to 02.
And you have the true distinction of being Tony Leonardi's last drummer.
That is correct, yes. Last one in his group for sure.
So from the drummer's perspective, what was it like being in the band and working with him at that point?
Yeah, I think, in any big band, everybody kind of feels like in college that you're in the hot seat, but you're not in the hot seat until you're playing drums with Tony Leonardi, I don't think. He played a little drums anyway, so he feels like he knew drumming.
Don't we all play drums a little anyway?
You're right.
We all think we do.
Yes. And then, you were just always on pins and needles, trying to please him, trying to do what he wanted you to do. And he really pushed you hard. I remember him walking around the Dana School of Music, maybe on the third floor, all the practice rooms are, and he'd be down the hallway all the way, and he'd yell down the hallway, "Darren, get on top of the beat," to improve myself. That's how he was. He was just really encouraging, but he expected you to give 100% all the time.
Which band were you in the first year?
When I got there freshman year, there was 4 bands.
Wow.
And I tried out, and it was pretty much all I wanted to do when I got there was playing the big band, and I didn't make a group. So I was crushed, right?
Right.
And, I was still practicing and whatever. And I was walking by the band room one day, and I think JV, John Vineski, was doing the 4th band at that point, and walked by the band room, and he saw me and Kent saw me, and they were like, "Hey, our drummer didn't show up. You want to play?"
Nice.
So I got into 4th group, and then halfway through the year, they moved me up to 3rd group because I was doing that good and really enjoyed that. Tony was running 3rd group at that point, so I got to know Tony a little bit. And then the next year I made Jazz 1 from sophomore year on. That's where I was.
Cool. So what's your approach when you're playing for big band?
Well, I think, just philosophically, 2 things are really important. One is time, and the other being making everybody feel comfortable where they're coming in. That's what I kind of strive to do. The other thing I'm really conscious of is not to overplay.
Right.
There's a lot of big band drummers that have a lot of power and it's awesome, but it gets old when it's not contrasted with some soft playing. So I'm really conscious of not playing loud in a big band all the time.
Sure.
I'm a director of high school kids, and so I work with my drummers, and of course I'm probably more brutal on them than the other cats, but
you learn from a good teacher for that.
That's right. But that's what I stress to them, especially when we sight read something. I'm like, you know what? Don't worry about some of those figures. If you don't know what's going on, stop when there's a break and make sure you're keeping good time for the other people playing. And 99 times out of 100, that'll work for you.
Right. Might be kind of the same question, but asking a different way. How do you adjust for a group that's very responsive, say like a pro level group, to a group that could use some guidance? How do you communicate with them from that level, and then from the professional level?
The professional level, you have to say a lot less, but at the same time, you kind of got to worry about their egos and that sort of thing a little more, where
right.
The
Sure.
community group, you're not going to be worrying about that as much. They want to be helped and get some comments and that sort of thing. But I think in general, professionals, you can give them kind of a more vague thing. You can say, hey, you know what, I kind of needed more. I remember one time we were playing, I think it was Caravan, that Latin arrangement, and we started the tune, and I had never heard it or played it before, and you said something like, I want it more big band like, or something to that extent.
Right.
You know, it's not a very specific comment. It's not like I want you to play on the ride bell and that sort of thing, but it made sense to me to play it that way and play the figures more as opposed to play groove and that sort of thing. Whereas in a community group, you probably can't say that and they would understand what that was.
Right.
you'd have to be a little more specific, like, I want you to play those figures above the line a little more and not play groove, and maybe catch them on the snare and the bass rather than playing a cymbal at that point, or that sort of thing. So I think you got to be a little more specific with community groups or the less experienced groups of what you want.
Actually, that leads to a really good question, because I know I talk about it in rehearsals over the years, but obviously I'm a trombone player, so I don't speak drummer. I speak brass player more than that. What are some tips or hints that you can give me as the director of the band to better communicate with you or with a drummer in particular?
Yeah, I think you got to be upfront with them. I would rather hear some feedback than have you holding it back or something and just getting upset with things, or, because of ego reasons or whatever it might be. As a player, if you get feedback nonstop and whatever, you start doubting if you're playing well.
Right.
The kind of a line you have to toe with any form of feedback. I think being upfront with, hey, after that set, I feel like I'd love you to be a little stronger playing behind the shouts, or, whatever it might be, that feedback. But for me, I like to listen to recordings of myself playing, and then, you always get feedback from other people around the music, and I appreciate getting that.
Cool. Talk to me about the importance of listening, especially with big band music.
Wow. Yeah. It's a style. We've all heard the drummers that just jump into a big band thinking it's going to be easier, just something they can jump into, and then they sound like an alien playing big band music.
Right. Sure.
So I think it's really important in this to know the tradition and that sort of things. There's a lot of great drummers that, are totally passable playing in a big band, but you can tell that they have not heard Sonny Payne play with the Basie band. You can tell that they don't have that sound in their ears, and, they're playing from a rock music perspective. There's a lot of crash cymbals going on and heavy snare and bass when, it's more about the ride cymbal and that sort of thing. So I think that hearing the music and kind of digesting that and hearing what other people have done really informs certainly my playing. All those heroes we have, big band drummers, Buddy Rich, and, I mentioned Sonny Payne, Mel Lewis, all those guys had a certain sound, a certain way they set up figures, certain structure that they would play charts with. And having that in your back pocket gives you a little experience or strength behind what you're doing and what you're trying to do. Also, in the listening category, comes back to the dynamic thing. Like, if you're playing too loud as a drummer, you're not hearing the sax solo playing, and
Right.
You're not hearing that cool counter melody the trombones are playing at that point. And, I've heard a lot of comments of bands I play in, sub in, that they were like, whoa, I've never heard that part of the tune before. Because
Right.
like at some point that drummer is just blasting away and they don't hear it.
So I started listening to big band music when I was in second grade. So what's that, like 8, 9 years old? When did you start really got into listening to big band music?
Trying to remember the first big band recording I got, but I found this Buddy Rich big band. It was from 1981, and it was a cassette tape. I got it at a flea market in Florida.
Wow.
And boy, I listened to that thing to death. It had Good News on it with his big drum feature, and the other Minster tune that's really funky.
Slow funk?
Yeah, slow funk's on there, and there's like a Jackson 5 piece, and there was a bunch of different stuff on there, but man, that sound was just really cool to my ears at that point. I was listening to Metallica and Hendrix, and
Sure.
So getting into that was a different bag for me. But from there, I went to like Kinda Blue, and from there, I just listened to everybody I could after that.
Well, one of the things I know I always enjoy was Stump the Drummer, because of all the things that I've listened to over the years. Usually I'd be like, hey, do you know this? And then it was like, well, do you know this? And you'd be like, yeah. And then we'd kind of go back and forth with it.
Yeah.
But if I know that you already have at least a good working knowledge of what the chart is, I'm not really worried about the rest of the band. Because if you have a drummer that can basically guide everybody through, then that makes it easier for everybody else to work within what their issues are going to be for sight reading or for trying to listen to.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a conductor as well because do the band. I'm conductor of the Cleveland Youth Wind Symphony. I really think that the drummer is just the conductor of the big band. It sets the dynamics, it sets up all the kicks like you do as a conductor, is giving them points of syncopation to make sure they come in at the same time. And, a lot of that comes from the drum chair. So if you have a guy that reads fairly well, that just helps to read that new music and get it closer the first time, for sure.
Yeah. People ask the question, where is the time in a big band? And, where do you listen for the time? And of course, 80 to 90% of the time, they'll say the drummer. Mm-hmm. But Tony's answer was the bass player. Yeah. And because of the fact that it's always playing, but give a little bit more background about how that relationship works with the bass player as the timekeeper and you as, like you said, as the conductor. I think that's a good description.
Yeah. I think it was in an army band masterclass I saw on video once. They gave a percentage of who was the most important thing to the tempo and time, and they put 51% on the bass and 49% on the drummer. And I think that's pretty much my philosophy, is it's kind of half of our fault, but mostly the bass player.
Right.
Because
just a little more. That's
right.
Good.
Just a little more, because I think, if you're looking at their parts, for the most part, they're playing quarter notes. And
right.
As a drummer, you got four limbs going, playing pretty complex rhythms on most times. So I think that's what gives them the 1 extra percent. But, it's so important that a bass player and a drummer lock up that ride cymbal and the hi-hat with the bass player playing those quarter notes. And it really either makes the evening go great, or you feel it dragging the whole night because it's not lining up. And kind of everybody has their different feels. I remember Tony talking about when Max Roach came through with school and playing with Max Roach, and he counted off something fast like Cherokee, or, Tony plays right on the beat or a little in front. And then as a drummer, you have to play in front of that.
Right.
So, that was always his philosophy and how he taught. But Max Roach, man, he sat square on the beat and never was on top. So Tony said he had to change what he was doing with that drummer. And likewise, when he played with Buddy Rich, there's the famous story of him firing the bass player. And so Tony came in and played the gig and counted off the first tune. And by the sixth bar, Tony was on the second bar. and Buddy stops the band, looks at him, gives him the death stare, and they count off. And Tony was right on top of it the rest of the show.
Sure.
So I think everybody's a little different, and you might have to adjust a little bit. Sherry Lucetti plays on top of the beat because she's a Tony disciple, and other people I play with are, a little different here and there. So it's an adjustment that you have to do all night.
All right. Favorite chart you've played?
Ugh.
With us or without on Monday night?
Dang, man. Yeah, there's just so many great charts, and I think from all of it, I played this chart, I think, in every group almost I played in, and I just always come back to it and love playing it, is Shiny Stockings.
Oh, yeah.
Great. I don't think that chart ever has a bad feel. It's one of those chord changes that just flows and everybody feels good immediately. And then the way that chart's written, it just kind of builds, and then you just have lots of room in that shout chorus to play. So, I played that in the Zola band. I played that at college. I think that was the Frank Foster thing. And,
yeah,
definitely played it with Skatch too.
Yeah. Favorite Monday night chart?
Yeah, that's tough too, but I feel like I've been loving Mean What You Say a lot.
Yeah.
That's another one that just feels good all the time. And there's room for me right before the shout, and the shout has plenty of room, and, good solo section. And that's just a good, fun one to play with a group with all those soloists.
Chart you've not played, but you want to play?
Yeah, maybe some of the Buddy Rich stuff we don't get to. I just love listen to that stuff all the way throughout college and end of high school, and just those iconic Buddy charts that, you don't get to. We pulled out that West Side Story. That was amazing. And I had to bust my chops for weeks to practice that thing. And
I've had a few people ask me to bring that back.
Yeah, man.
So we can do that. But thanks for the time, and thanks for all the info. And hopefully we'll get back to playing, because, man, I miss playing with all you guys.
Oh, for sure. I keep telling my wife, if the golf courses weren't open, I don't know why I'd be living right now.
Yeah, right.
Between playing and golf, that's how I get through life,
Right on. We'll talk to you soon.
Cool. Appreciate it, Eric.
Thanks, man.
All right.
Well, the foundation of our big band is complete. I hope you enjoyed hearing from my surprise guest, Darren Allen, about the role of the drummer in a big band. You can see him conduct the Cleveland Youth Wind Symphony and the Bay High School bands in Bay Village, Ohio. You can also hear him perform with the Skatch Anderssen Orchestra, Cleveland's best Monday night big band. You can hear them on Facebook Live at 8 p.m. Eastern every week for one set of great modern big band music. Make sure you follow the band on Twitter at SAO Jazz, on Instagram at SAO Big Band, and, if you can, swing by the Patreon page at www.patreon.com/SAO Big Band to show your support. The BigBandology podcast is also sponsored by BAC, Best American Craftsman, makers of my custom bass trombone and Model 4 tenor trombone. BAC, get in the loop. Next week, we discuss more interesting aspects about the musical styles of a modern big band. Until then, I'm Eric Drakney. Thanks for checking in. Be safe and keep swinging.